In this video, we'll be covering the basics of setting up routing, navigating between two components, and passing in parameters via routes. So to set up your routes in Angular, what you need is, in your app's configuration, you need to provide the router, which is coming from this Angular router. And then here you need to pass in your array of routes, so which are set up here in your apps.routes. So that's basically what you need. So what I'm just gonna do now is generate two pages, right? So ng generating pages, I wanna have like a first component, and then wanna say second component, right? So you can have any page. You can have like a home, about page, contact us, so forth, so forth. So I'm just trying to simplify this. Okay, so what you then need to do is you need to set up like your actual routes. To set up your route is you need to specify the path, and this path over here is called first. Also I have like a component called first component, right? So what this does is, this is the path to this component, right? And then this is the actual component I want to actually render. So that's just it for that. And then I can just do the same thing here, and I can say second and second component. Okay, this is pretty cool, right? So now that this is already done, right? So if I actually ng serve, let's just say this says it's already in use. Okay, now if I were to open this guy, so let's go over here, actually open this guy like this. So now if I open this, that's already running. You'll see that I don't have like an actual page being rendered, right? So let me just remove this, and then in here let me have like this router outlet. So now what happens is you'll see that now there's like an empty page that's being routed, right? And this is because here in my actual route there's nothing here in the actual path to an empty route. But now if I say first, this will just render that, and if I specify second, right, that should render that page, right? And you know, in application, when we route to the first empty page, it normally goes to the home page and stuff. So how you can actually implement that functionality is, here in your actual route, what you can do is you can have like a path to an empty path, and then say redirect to and specify first. So what this will do is, if it actually routes to that empty path, it will just go to this first component. So now what happens is, if I were to do this, you'll see that we actually still have like an issue. So what's causing this issue is because that empty path, right, even in here there is like some sort of like an empty path. So what we need to see is, say this path match and say full, right? So if it actually matches the full path, then it does that. So what this will do is, the moment I actually go to that empty path, it will just redirect to that page. And yeah, basically that's what you need to do to actually route to those specific pages, right? Okay, so we can actually add like some sort of like links, right? So if I were to go to my actual home page in here and actually try to specify like a nav, not gonna make it as fancy, so I'm just gonna have an a tag here and say this goes to the first page, and the second a tag which goes to the second page, right? So now if I were to open this, this doesn't look as nice. Okay, let's just do this. Okay, now I can actually specify some stylings. Okay, text deco, just underline, and then margin. We'll just have like a margin 10 pixels or 20 pixels. That's fine. Okay, so now we've got these two. So now if I just say cursor pointer, and that's fine, right? So if I want to now navigate to those specific pages, right, what I'll need to do is actually set up like my router link. So I need to specify like a router link. So this is gonna say router link, and then this router link will just navigate to this empty path. Okay, and then this one will actually go to my actual second page. Okay, so what this will do is the moment I actually, okay, so this is actually my actual router link. Let's see what's actually happening. Okay, let's see, router. So this is router link, and so this goes to the empty path. Okay, that does that. Okay, let's actually see what's going on there. And it's actually still complaining. Says cannot. It says you cannot bind a router link. Let's see something if I go in here and actually, okay, if I import my router module, just want to see something. Okay, yeah, so it was complaining because I didn't import like my actual router module, right? Okay, so now if I click on this, this goes to the second page and I can just do that, right? Okay, which is actually fine, right? So now I want to just use like a button. So I'm just gonna say this is a button. In this button, just gonna give it btn, and then I'm gonna say to first, right? So there is like another way to actually implement like your navigations, right? So this other way is actually using this. So you say private router, and you'll inject this router, right? And then you can just say handle to first. And then here you can just use this router.navigate by URL, and you can just navigate to the first path, or you can just use this actual path, right, to the first page. And then in here I'm just gonna configure like a click, and then I just say handle that function, right? So what this will do is if you go in here, so now I'm still in the second page, if I click on this, this will actually also route to that first page, right? So this is actually pretty cool for now. And then now we want to also show you how we can go about setting up passing in parameters through your route, right? So how you go about doing that is in here you can specify. So let me just create a page which just say detail page. Okay, so what I will do is actually run an ngserve. So I'm just gonna run an ngserve. Okay, so I'm just gonna specify this as detail, right? And then I'm just gonna say this is detail component. I then need to say forward slash, pass in this colon, and then the actual name of this is gonna be called like an ID. So that's the actual parameter that I wanna pass in there, right? So that's pretty cool. Okay, so now what I can then actually do is if I go ahead in my actual component, right, or in my actual application, if I specify, so if I say detail, right, /1, okay, let's see, did I spell it right? Did I say detail? Oh, sorry, my bad, this is not the right. Okay, let me just use the right. My bad. Okay, let me just use this. So now if I say detail, right, /1, okay, detail /1. So you see there's actually something that's going on in there. So, and what is it that's causing that issue? Okay, yeah, awesome. So now this is actually going to that. Now I can actually specify this, and you're actually seeing that it's actually routing to that specific page, right? But now how you can actually then grasp the parameter from that page is, so I'm just going to use something in here. I'm just going to use like an h1 tag, and then I'm going to say your ID is, then in here I'm just going to then display this ID, right? So I'm just going to display ID, or I'm just gonna call it detail ID. Okay, so for this detail ID, this is just gonna be a string, an empty string. So then how I can actually get my actual detail ID, what I'll then need to do is actually use the constructor and say, okay, private, just gonna say this is route, and this is using an activated route. I like to call it activated route. Okay, and then that's that. Then implement on init. Okay, then I just want to implement this. Say on init, then I just want to say this detail ID is then going to equal to this dot activated route dot get the snapshot. Then I'm just gonna say parameter and get my actual ID. Okay, so if that's null, then I'm just gonna pass in this empty. Okay, so what's actually happening in here, or what I can then do is actually have like an if condition in here to grasp that ID. But what's happening here is I'm actually then trying to grasp like the ID, right? But this name over here should be the one that you actually specified after this colon. So if I say this is detail, so if I say this is detail ID, then in here I was supposed to then specify that it's actually detail ID, right? But for now I'm actually using ID, and then if I go ahead in this component in here, and now if I run this, and if I were to change this up to something, then you should actually see that it's actually changing up the number that's actually rendered in here. But if I called this something else like, then that should then render that. So if you then want to tie this up to a specific like button, what you can then do is in your actual thing here, in here, instead of me routing to this, I can just say detail. This has to go to a detail /123. And if I save this and say route to detail, 123. If I save this, okay, so if I were to save that and actually display this, so let me just show you here. So now I'm here in the first page, second page. If I click on this, then you can actually see that the routes are actually changing. So yeah, that's it for this video. If you actually like this content and you're new to the channel, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.